Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry. With me as always is...
Now, all we need is skin. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And today we're talking about Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, released September 9th, 1988. What is that? We're coming up on the anniversary.
I can't do math.
No, neither can I. There's at least like...
Add 4 years to... Wait, 94 till now, that's 30 years, right?
30.
So 34 years? 34-year anniversary?
36 years.
See, I can't do math.
And can I just say, okay, so Ashley Lawrence, and there was like a post about this recently where they're just commenting on how, because she does the convention route, she is stunning. This woman is like nearing 60, I believe. Like she still looks as youthful as the day is long.
Snow White. Love it.
Take your best shot, Snow White.
My favorite is the suck 'em on. Because she's saying, at first I was like, what is she? It sounds like she's suck 'em on. And I'm like,
suck 'em on.
So come on. Yeah.
So come on.
So come on is the line, but it's like, suck 'em on.
Suck 'em on. We covered, I think it was like 2 years ago that we did the original.
It's been a while.
Yeah, we were kind of like at a loss because it's just, we've been a little scattered lately. Well, I have at least. I don't want to speak for Edward on that count, but
I had a terrible day. Yeah, I'm all over the place.
I'm more so just talking about in general because like normally we're on top of like a schedule because I think at the last time we're like we don't know what's happening this week, so I'm just like okay Hellraiser 2
right.
and
Yes.
here we are.
Yes.
But this is actually really good because I did purchase the Arrow. There was like a box set which I should have brought out to like display here because it's really cool. It's like the Chatterer because there's like you could get the Pinhead or the Chatterer,
right?
And it's like you take it out and it's sort of like every layer of like the plastic that you peel off is just sort of like goes underneath the skeleton and the muscle tissue and all that. It's pretty
that's
gnarly.
Amazing! Oh, that makes me so happy in such a like third grade, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is more teenagery. Like I think I was put off by. I think when the first one came out, I was about 7.
Yeah.
So I think I was put off by the visage of him. It wasn't until I was in my teens that I kind of dove in and thought, what is this about? And I watched the movies. I was like, oh no.
I mean, for a lot of people, the buck stops here. Like, you know, some people are only like original Hellraiser, but like then there's others that are just like 1 and 2. And I mean, I think like the third one, we'll cover it one day. Because I think that there's still value in the first 4. But I think, like, the fourth one is, like, the last, like, truly, like, good. Like, not even good, but just, like, watchable one. Adam Scott is in the fourth one.
Ooh, I love Adam
interestingly
Scott.
enough. But, there was, like, a lot of production disaster on that one. But, yeah, after that, it all went, like, direct to... like Dimension home video, and it wasn't even Hellraiser, it was just like spec scripts that they're like, oh, let's like make it Hellraiser. So Pinhead, Doug Bradley's like has a cameo in it, because they literally just like, all right, let's just have a scene that's like, now we're in Hellraiser. And then of course there was the reimagining, which I mean, I've seen it once, but I don't really, you know, I didn't take much away from it, so I don't know if it was really my thing.
I didn't hear a lot of enthusiasm for it either. I remember.
No, and I mean it was also Hulu as well, and I don't believe it has a physical media release. I could be wrong since then, but again, like more examples of just streaming coming in and ruining everything, and you know, like where's that Barbarian? Like I'm not even a huge fan of Barbarian, but like that chaps my ass that this is a movie that like was clearly as popular as it was, and you've got you know Disney or whoever just kind of like gatekeeping it, you know, for their platforms to stream on. So, and I would buy that, you know, but what I kind of like about this movie is that it does the thing. It does you know, it's kind of like Omen to Omen 2. Well, maybe not really Omen to Omen 2, but like Halloween to Halloween 2, where it's sort of like just like the continuity and the tone, like everything is just very cohesive from the one movie to the next, and especially since this pretty much picks up exactly where the previous one left off.
Right. No, I remember I may have rented the first two back to back the first time that I saw this one, so I was primed by the end of the first one. Then when I saw the second one, I remember I was just it worked so well. It did that for me. It did the thing, the Halloween 1, Halloween 2. You know, like oh. It's almost like they had this in mind the whole time, you know. You just kind of feel like you're reading chapters in a book rather than watching a sequel to a movie that had to go into launch its own pre-production and its own, you know, like script writing situation and its own, like, okay, what are we going to do with these characters now? It just seems like a natural progression for me, and that's as far as I've ever gotten. The buck does stop here as far as just viewership. Yeah. I've only seen the first two because nobody has ever recommended. I think you're the only one who's I think I've had one person recommend 3. Go like 3's not that bad, but you're the only one who I think has ever recommended 4. Not even recommended, but said, eh.
I like 4 better than 3. I think.
Really?
3's really silly. There's 4 also. You know who's in 4 is not Meryl Streep from Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Not Meryl Streep.
She's the girl.
Yes,
like the
the one who plays Lisa. The one who plays.
Lisa Weber, I think was her name. Yeah, she's in that. Like, what's interesting about the 4th one is that it's kind of like there's a wraparound that takes place in the future, so it's all space. So it's literally like it's Jason X before Jason X, but like Pinhead X, we'll say, and then it proceeds to like go to, I believe, the 17th century, and then it jumps forward to the present day, so it would have been like 1994. So it's interesting that it's sort of like this story that's just told in segments of time, and then the wraparound brings it back into space again in the future.
God!
But with 3 and 4, like there is a through line. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's. That's why I say at least recommend the first 4, because they're, by the end of this movie, when that pillar comes out of the mattress, that actually, the continuity of that goes directly into the beginning of Hell on Earth, which is the third one. So they were actually, I mean, it's almost like Friday the 13th, and I'd say that the continuity is even sharper than Friday the 13th in terms of just like, you know, Jason at the bottom of the lake, then Tina bringing him up. Like here we've got like everything between the first 2 movies is pretty consistent, and then the pillar, which is like Pinhead is trapped inside, and then from there at the end the lament configuration is buried under this building, which then it's found in the 4th one. So there's you know, you can watch it and you can get a full story. Once it gets to 5, that's where just like the bullshit starts.
Right.
And it
becomes an anthology series hosted by.
It's not even
your crypt keeper Pinhead.
Yeah.
Basically.
If that, but until like I think the 8th movie, where that was the last one he was in, and then they recast the role because Doug Bradley's like, I'm not doing this anymore. So they did that one, which was like Revelations, which was just made on a shoestring budget. Like it was probably made for like $5,000. If you watch it, it's not good at all. And then they did one more recently, like 2018, that Heather Langenkamp actually has a cameo in, called Judgment, and it's really weird. Like it's you know, it's out there. I mean, like points for creativity, but it's like, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the Hellraiser franchise is just 1 to 4, and I would take the most recent one over any of the Dimension or Beyond era, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one day I've threatened for years to finally just kind of commit myself and, you know, horror fan it out and just watch them for the sake of watching them, so I can know what I think, and also I can, you know, rank them on Letterboxd and whatnot. You know, like that's very important.
Oh my god, I think I do have a Letterboxd ranking, but it's neither here nor there. Where can people watch Hellbound?
there are, number one, like innumerable physical releases at varying degrees of quality visually and audio. But I mean, if you just find a Blu-ray, you find a Blu-ray. The most impressive one and most recent one and it's not even recent, it's coming in 2 months. There is a Hellraiser Quartet of Torment 4K Blu-ray. It is the first 4 flicks all together in a limited edition. It's 4 movies, 6 cuts. Go to Blu-ray.com. They have all the details that are available right now on it. I won't go into it because I'll just be here the whole pod.
I don't know about because that's the one I have, but I think I just got the UK import, so this might be like they're just finally like, sure, we'll release it in
okay.
America. Yeah.
Okay. It looks like the same cover. I saw the covers that had the little chatter. I was going to call him Chatterbox. Chatterbox.
You're such a chatterbox.
Yeah, you're such a chatterbox. Get down off that thing.
Yeah.
But and then also it looks like it only has it available with Pinhead on the front of it, though. Who we're just going to call him Pinhead because that's what it is on IMDb. This one, I think we tried to call him head Cenobite, lead Cenobite, or priest in the last one.
Cenobites.
This one's Cenobuns.
Cenobites.
A little bag of Cenobites. I love to take them to the movies and watch people just get.
when you go to the mall and just like the smell of the cinnamon and the icing just wafting in, just tempting you.
Cenobite. I gotta, anyway, but yeah, it's available on that, or you can stream it like I did off of, it's on AMC Plus, aka Shudder. You can watch it free with ads off Plex, Pluto TV, Tubi, that's where I watched it. And it's everywhere, so grab it, folks. Grab it. It's a good time.
Grab it. Awesome.
What cards on the table? I had a good time.
On the table. With this one. Yeah. Okay, well, just a little housekeeping before we dive into Hellbound Hellraiser 2. I want to thank some Patreon supporters of mine and the podcast. So, to the Michael Myers tiers, thank you to Kyle Beard, Sam Levy, Ellie Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horror Slut 95, Bruce the Genetic Jackhammer Rando. Fun note about Bruce, by the way, he's the one that coined the term macabros for the followers of my film that we're going to be filming in November. So had to get that in there. Thank you, Bruce, for giving us macabros. Also, thank you to Gary Blasick, Josh Carr, Michael Boswell, Brandy Beebe, and then thank you to the Ghostface supporters. We got Eric Champney, who's my co-writer, co-director on Macabre, and we got Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, Garrison Nichols. So thank you very much to all these lovely people who are just incredibly supportive of the podcast, of Macabre as well. All of this is possible because of you. So, love you for that. Viewers like you. And if you would like to support the podcast on Patreon, if you are new or if you're, a longtime viewer listener and you want to give back, you can head over to my Patreon account at www.patreon.com/ZackCherry. That's ZACKCHERRY. And any tier will get you early access to all of our regular episodes. And if you are supporting at the Freddy Krueger tier, you will get access to the Cherry Picker After Dark, which is the episode that we do exclusively for Patreon supporters every month. And it is September now, so in August we covered the James Bond franchise Part 1, where Edward and I ranked the first 14 movies. That's about 3 hours right there. Well, guess what, folks? We got Part 2 coming up this month, so you'll get to hear what we have to say about films 15 to 25 as we rank those. So, not quite horror or even horror adjacent, but it got a little scary. I'll tell you that.
For us both, for completely different reasons. Yeah.
Anyway, so if you want to check those out, as well as all of the previous episodes of the Cherry Picker After Dark, that will be accessible to you as a Freddy Krueger tier supporter. Otherwise, I want to thank the podcast editor, Jason Voorhees Galatello. Thank you very much for continuing to, put up with our bullshit and, adding little fun graphics and animations along the way. And, we might, I don't know when, we might see a cameo appearance from him or, a special guest appearance from Jason on the podcast. We'll have to see how that goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's all I got for that. Edward, what is Hellbound about?
All right. Well, glad that you asked, Zach. Kirsty is brought to an institution after the horrible events unlocked by the Lament configuration, and now an occult-obsessive head doctor resurrects Julia and unleashes the Cenobites and their demonic underworld, which may well have everyone hellbound. Hellraiser 2. Ooh. Yeah?
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. I thought so.
So, okay. This one, I like it. This is obviously the second best as far as I'm concerned. But is there a plot? Can you find a plot in this movie? I feel like things just happen, and it's just it's a lot of running around.
I mean, it's a running around that I am totally on board for. Again, this is something we discussed with the first one too, that I think is even put into play even more so with this sequel. And I find it delectable. It's all about the dream logic, right. Things are going to make sense because of what they mean to you, the viewer, or what you think they mean to the characters you watch wandering around. But I do agree. I was following it for a really long time, and then finally when we got to the end, it felt like it kind of ended because it had to, because they didn't want to just keep the movie going on indefinitely, because that would have tried our patience, and it didn't try my patience, but it didn't really mean anything. I was like, our two young heroines, our lovely Tiffany and our lovely aforementioned Kirsty, both kind of get out cause there's no real I don't really remember anything being spelled out, and I don't need it to, but I think I took the note at the very end. Admittedly, how and why they escaped is still a mystery to me. I'm just not mad at it. So I agree with you, but I don't care.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I'm just looking at trivia on IMDb, as I often do when I have a question that isn't answered satisfactorily on the podcast. Is that I don't mean any shade by that. I just mean if you don't know, I wanna see. And so Andrew Robinson, from the first movie, and also Child's Play 3. He was I forget the character's name, but he was the barber. And he's also the scorpion killer in the original Dirty Harry movie. Where he's just Clint says, because he's like, I've got rights, after he murders that girl, and of course Clint Eastwood's just like, well, I'm all broken up about that man's rights. So he was obviously in the first one. He played Larry, and also Frank and Larry Skin. Yes. Which is just funny to say. And apparently he refused to reprise his role as Larry Cotton, forcing hasty script rewrites. This partially accounts for the muddled story structure of the final film. So maybe when she sees that vision of skinless Frank, which doesn't make any sense because he has skin later on, but maybe that was supposed to actually be Larry. so there was this whole thing of like her going to hell to rescue him, and that kind of, that got thrown out the window, because he does appear in this, like, other than there are the flashbacks, or just I guess like the not the flashbacks, but like the like the Halloween 2 opening of Dr. Loomis shoot him over the railing, but there is a scene when Kirsty is talking to the detective earlier on, or maybe it was Chenard at that point, but just sort of regaling him of her backstory. And there's a scene that takes place at the wedding of Julia and Larry, which I had to look this up because I'm like, but Andrew Robinson is in the movie, because this is brand new footage. But apparently that was footage that was shot for Hellraiser 1 and just was cut out of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, I'm stunned, because I actually like the whole, Uncle Frank kind of appearing to her skinless, appealing to her belief that her father needs to be saved and everything like that, and her own connection to him, and that, driving her to hell and then right into his arms. I mean, it doesn't last terribly long, but I do feel like, I wonder what the movie would have been like. Like, what would have Larry been like in hell, not even in hell, but in the Labyrinth? I mean, I guess that is technically hell, but it even felt like kind of like its own layer of the afterlife. Like because they kept getting sucked away other places, and I kept wondering, is hell beyond the maze? This all felt kind of like Hell's waiting room or Hell's play area.
Well, hell started to kind of like come on. It was like hell on earth by the end there.
Yeah.
Until they shut it down. But I don't know. I don't know how Larry would have fared in any of this. I'm surprised that he refused to, because I mean, like, especially knowing that he's still like, had the spirit to do more genre films, as we'll call them, by coming up and being in Child's Play 3. But there was that line in the first movie that I love when Kirsty stumbles upon her father's carcass in the attic or whatever, and then Frank in Larry's skin is just like, oh, don't mourn him, he was dead long before we got to him. So it's just sort of like implied that he was sort of like, he was just sleepwalking through life, like, it's like, it's okay, he doesn't mind. So who knows, maybe he's just like, he's somewhere in hell just like sipping on sangria and just warming up by the flames.
Yeah, I'm wondering if also there's something to, like, once they get to the Leviathan Labyrinth, that makes it all feel like, again, like in keeping with the grim fairy tale theme, or just fairy tale theme, or story, children's story, bedtime story. That's the term I'm looking for. It seemed very kind of, through the looking glass, Wonderful Wizard of Oz, kind of like, voyage into like another worlds, and you just kind of like have encounters with people along the way, and because there's no real strong plots to, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, or to, it's just kind of like, person is no longer home, person is in a strange place, person makes friends, person makes enemies, person gets out, and the thing that makes it memorable is the journey, and and the people, and also what I really, really liked was, I felt like strong plot lines in lieu of strong plot lines. I feel like this one did kind of explore the possibilities in terms of just situations that the characters were in. Like, I loved seeing, oh my god, and again, this is coming off of like we watched 25 007 movies, did we? And I enjoyed approximately
don't spoil the Cherry Picker After Dark.
Okay, I enjoyed a number of them. But it was like finally watching this, when I saw that mattress and I just saw that bloody woman, that muscle and anatomical chart woman burst through with those giant blue eyes, gazing at Dr. Chenard. I I felt like I was home, because I remember she was the first thing I was exposed to in this movie. I think it was on like Sci-Fi Channel back in the day, before I ever rented it to watch it from beginning to end, and I just saw this woman, bleeding through her bandages, and everything she touched,
fabulous.
She stained,
and that's obviously that's not Claire Higgins who reprises the role as Skin Julia, but she's great. Like there's the scene where he kind of comes walking downstairs and she's just standing in the living room, like staring into the mirror. Like the imagery of that, like there's just something so haunting about it, because it's like everything in that place is like very austere and stark white. Like there's like white carpeting, white walls, and then you have just like this bloody muscled tissue woman figure, and then of course what is she just like, I'm cold, and then puts on this white coat, and then she just comes walking out. It's just like, it's all bloodied. And actually, I appreciate that, because remember in the first movie, and I might have mentioned something about this, when there's a moment where, like, I think after she's already realized that Frank is resurrected, and she changes her blouse, like, because she gets bloodied from, like, the first kill, and then she puts on a new blouse, and it's all white, and then she goes back up into the attic, and Frank, like, grabs her blouse, and I'm like, no, you're gonna stain it. Like, she's trying to hide it from Larry, but there was nothing. There was no blood on it. So I mean, I'm glad that at least they paid attention to continuity here, and we're just like, you touch something silky and white with that, like it's gonna stain.
Yeah, out damn spot. But because you remember you making the Lady Macbeth illusion last time too. But it's one of those things where I have like a very, very short list of looks that if I ever do drag again, it's something I'd like to attempt. And the mummified gown, sinewy, bloody Julia is something I'd love to attempt, some Halloween, or even better, some just random night when people aren't expecting it and freak the shit out of people.
Maybe, like, that's what's so great about this movie, because there might not really be a plot, but there's just these fabulous moments. And a lot of them they're mostly centered around either Kirsty or Julia. But like, when she finally is like unbandaged, and it's just like we're revealing like after the surgery, and she's there's like wind and lightning all around, and they're like inside this room, and it's just like what's happening here? But the logic the logic of this fucking movie, because the timeline, it's literally the next day, and they're so whatever. Chenard, because he clearly has dabbled in this occult stuff for a while, so he like knew about the mattress. He's like, have it delivered to my house. But he's able to bring, like, there's like 7 corpses in that room, like hanging up there, and like they weren't waiting there. They haven't been there for a while. Like, he went out and he found these women, and it's just like, were they like, call girls or prostitutes or something, like, or did he just like, because like with Julia, this was like a process that took place over like the period of at least like several weeks, and she only managed to get 3 men, and she had to work it. She had to hustle. She like would go to the bars and flirt and like bring them home, and it's just like, here's Chenard. I mean, it had to have been like the exchange of something monetary for him to like accumulate that many women in one afternoon, or he's like, hey, get in my car. But just like that shot of just like when she first, like the first woman, or the first one that we see, and she's doing like the sucking, the soul sucking, and then we kind of like pan over and just see like all the other corpses there. Like everything about that is just amazing. Like I think that I like the movie earlier than I do later. Like, I think it starts off really strong, and then it kind of gets weaker for me as it goes on.
Okay, it's interesting you bring up how Chenard got those bodies, because I always just assumed, because he was obviously, he had his own little kind of like like medieval almost dungeon, asylum going on underneath, like down in the bowels of his hospital, or his his practice. That he was obviously like, I think, not against performing lethal experiments on them anyway. But I think.
But I don't think
I always thought they were his patients. I always just thought they were his patients.
Well, the one that self-mutilates on the mattress, which is
Yeah.
probably that was hard to watch.
Yes.
But the women in the room, like, they did not seem like they were his patients. And even then, like, is he just, how many times in that afternoon did he, like, travel back and forth? Because he obviously went back to get Tiffany and then brought her over there. But it's like, how many patients would he be wrangling? I don't think those were patients, and I don't think that anyone really, in terms of, like, writing the script or, like, filming the movie cared. And I don't really care, but it's just one of those things that's like, that's interesting,
Oh, okay. I had my own headcanon going where it's like, okay, you probably made sure that there were people whose parents had either, like, moved on or died or didn't have anyone who was going to come by and follow up or anything like that. I thought he had this whole thing kind of, like, planned out. If he ever needed extra bodies, he knew which ones to go after, and they all happened to just be young,
so he had, like, the foresight. He knew everything that was going on in the first movie, and he was prepared for it.
No, not that he knew everything, but I mean, he did study up. It's not like he knew everything that went on in the first movie, but he did know what was what he was capable of summoning when he found something. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't know if it's a conduit or just some kind of, like, something that would create a gateway from, like this underworld into our world, and and blur that line.
Well, because he had the 3 other puzzle boxes already in his study, and actually that was something in the new movie. When a character finds, like, this book and just, like, opens it, and we actually find out that there's more than just the lament configuration. There are multiple boxes that supposedly do perform different things or open portals to different dimensions or whatever. The lament configuration as we know it is the one that goes into this underworld that we see in this movie where the Cenobites are. So I was really fascinated by that lore of just sort of, like, seeing, like, all this stuff in the house, and then they, there's kind of this whole thing with, like, Pinhead. So I guess, like, it never really, because they show it at the beginning of how Pinhead becomes Pinhead, because he was human at first. So that never really felt like a big revelation to me when it's revealed. By the way, okay, I feel like I've got a lot to say about Ashley Lawrence in this movie. Like, good things. Really good things. Okay. But there's the scene when she's confronting the Cenobites at the end, and I wanted to ask you about this because she has a very turned up performance. Like, what I commend her for is that, like, the way that she is acting, like what she's doing for this character, if any other actress and, like, another thing tried this role, I could see it coming off as, like, very obnoxious and like really annoying and grating, but somehow, like, Ashley Lawrence does it in a way that it's just, like, it's like very melodramatic, it's very hyperbolic, emphatic, there's a lot of drama to it. Like, she has this moment in that scene where she's confronting the Cenobites because they're just like, no more tricks, no more games, and she shows the picture of him, and he says something like someone and she's like, no, it's you, and in my mind I'm listening to him like, oh my god, she sounds like Lisa Kudrow, like Phoebe, like, when Phoebe gets really like anxious and just, like, starts talking like,
Yelsi! Yeah, I know.
But
I am so cuter. It's like common knowledge, Romy.
But no, my favorite moment, and I posted something on Instagram before, is when she's taking the shower, and then Kyle, I'm still not sure what his role is in this all. We'll talk about him, but Kyle comes in and he's like, I believe you. And he's like, okay, get dressed. And she just walks over to the wardrobe and she opens it. Like, this is the first time she's seeing that the clothes aren't there, but she opens it and it's empty. And she just turns to him and she says, shit! Like, it's just like the reaction was not proportionate with, like, what the thing was. But what I loved about it was just because what I wrote in the thing was the category was emphatic reactions to wire hangers. Or like best reaction. Well, I'm just telling for the listeners, and obviously Faye Dunaway
Obviously.
is the no wire hangers. But this is a close second.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think one of my favorites of the lines that Kirsty delivered in this movie, it just showed how you can take the same line, repeat it, and redefine it just tonally, because it was like, we have to help each other. We have to help each other. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. You know, that's all her.
Yeah.
And I think I screwed up the second because there was an escalation there. There's like yeah?
There's the quality to her. There's like this petulant childness to her. Like but it's so endearing, and that's what I'm talking about. Like if it was anyone else, like it might come off as just like like very off-putting, but she just makes it so cute and charming. And like there's the scene when she's recalling all the details of like what had happened, and she's talking about like how Frank got resurrected, and she's like, it was Julia, that bitch.
Yes.
And just really like keying into just like the energy of it, just like that.
Yeah.
That's her voice, almost like
Jawbreaker. But it was interesting because she all she really did was make me feel bad for her. I think that was the strongest reaction I had, in addition to just like my affection for her portrayal of this character. But I remember when it finally came to the fact where she, I guess, realized that she had failed in her pursuit to like save her father, that it just was not going to happen, certainly not on this trip. And if she ever gets out, who knows if she'll ever want to get back in, and the way she just kind of resigned herself and started to weep. I thought, damn, she fights so hard. Like, just the overall decency of the character that I loved seeing Tiffany then kind of recognize in her. And it really, and it made me go right back to chuckling again because eventually, because Tiffany starts to move toward her, and she starts to, like she wants to try and say something to her, console her, offer her some words of comfort, and she doesn't.
Woman.
But exactly. But she doesn't get to say "cookie woman,"
No.
But she instead just kind of like clutch each other, and then they immediately kind of move on, and then that's when we get almost immediately to the reveal of Chenard in his, and I do want to ask you about this, but in his new form. And then the first response that Tiffany has audibly is, "Oh shit!" And it's not even like she has to struggle to say it; it rolls off the tongue like she's a kid at the mall,
Maybe
and
she was like that character in Exorcist II that we covered last week, that like all of a sudden was like autistic and like would not speak, and then
all of a sudden, she's off and running.
Yeah, all of a sudden, Kirsty comes in, and she's Linda Blairing it up, and just sort of being like, getting the vocalization to come out of her.
Maybe Kirsty's a soldier of God. Maybe
here's
she is.
Fun fact. I don't know if this is true or not, but I just want to say it anyway because it's so ridiculous. This film, along with Titanic, 1997, holds the record for the most times two characters repeat each other's names. Tiffany, Kirsty.
Oh my God. It probably has nothing on Poltergeist 3, though, the amount of times they say Carol Ann.
Carol Ann, yeah.
Carol Ann! Carol Ann! Because people literally scream it like 8 times in one scene alone, and there were so many scenes in that movie. But yeah, that's fun. Okay. Drinking game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch it again to see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I want you mentioned Kyle. I feel like he's introduced to kind of set the movie, and this is why I like it. It feels like a curveball. Maybe it isn't, but it feels like it. Because it's so kind of perfectly set up within the first, I'd say, 40 minutes or so of the movie. By the time we reach that point, and there's an hour left to the runtime or so, it seems like we've set up Chenard and Julia as kind of like this nefarious couple, and then we've set up this like this couple of upstarts. This like, not that they're romantic in although I'm sure they could have gone that way, but with Kyle and with Kirsty. And it's funny because it once I kind of like put that together in my head, I'm like, because it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, so I forgot how soon we lose him, and even how, I mean, he gets sucked dry like a juice box. But
the effects of that are so good, like just like the bubbling and the
the
grossness of that.
The grossest, and also it's sad. Like, I'm not happy about it. I'm also not sitting there going like, yeah, suck him dry. I'm like, no, now Kirsty's gonna be alone,
I liked his character because he's the one who's sort of like doing the snooping, and kind of getting us to see what was going on, and then sort of like allowing this
Julia coming out of the mattress. Yeah.
And I loved like him just like hiding there and just being like, shit, they're gonna see me.
And immediately a believer, and he's gonna like want to like link arms with Kirsty and pull forward. So all these alliances are forged, and you think that's what the movie's gonna be about, and then it's not.
Well, one thing that I find hilarious is because we know at the end of the movie, like Kirsty does have her boyfriend, whose name escapes me because he's really like immaterial in the grand scheme of any of this, but she's like wakes up because all of a sudden she's now in this mental institution, and she's just like, where's that guy that I was dating for a week? And they're like, oh, he went home hours ago. So it's like whatever, even if that's true or not, like he's just disappeared, and he's irrelevant to everything, and just like completely like he's seeing some crazy shit, but now he's like, all right, peace, this is too much for me. So they really were kind of like setting up Kyle there as the new love interest. What's the word you have? There's a different word that you have for love interest that you've used before.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Damn it. It'll come to you.
Okay.
The object du jour, is that what it is?
The object du jour, désir. Objet désir. Object of desire. Yeah. Yes. The objet du jour is the object of the day, which actually he is. Kyle is absolutely the object of the day. That's hilarious.
The objet du jour. I like that.
I remember I made a strong case, or I don't know about strong, let's say impassioned case, for Julia not being kind of like, the big bad or the villain of the last movie and everything like that. And even though she moves into complete, like, I'm going to own my villainy,
I'm the evil queen,
position. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like, she even declares it, like, to our Snow White, and calls her Snow White. Mm-hmm. But I can't help but, I don't know, feel like she's exactly where she should be in this Leviathan labyrinth, because like everything about, I think it's the knowing glances she keeps giving Chenard as they're like wandering through, and she's asking him like, are you sure you want this? And he's like, it's all I've ever wanted, and all this stuff. And then she kind of takes him to it and offers it to him, and I can't help but feel like, yes, there is a devious quality to her as she is, because she's, entrapping him. Like, there's no consent going on here. He said he wanted it, doesn't know what he's saying yes to. He thinks he wants it. Yeah. And she just pushes him into it.
It's the same thing with Frank at the beginning of
the
first movie.
Of course. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like there's an odd, I don't know if it's not benevolence, but almost like a fully embodied belief that she is ultimately doing good for them. Like, she can enjoy the delectability of like the venom that's like coursing through her as because she knows she's not an angel, yet at the same time I think she believes that what she's doing is right because it is so wrong, because she herself has experienced it, so therefore when other people ask for it, she has no problem pushing them off the fucking cliff into what they want. And in a weird way, she's right, because what is the first thing that Chenard says when he comes back fully transformed? He asks the question, or not even asks, he says, and to think I hesitated. And I'm like, his wish was essentially granted. And it even brought up an issue. I remember we were talking about the pleasure pain principle, of course, like in depth with the last movie, and with anything that Clive Barker touches, really. But with this one, I feel like it answered the question about, like, why are we only being shown pain? It's because about being pushed to the brink of pain, then past the brink that you think you can take, and experiencing the pleasure that goes in the limits, beyond you even dare imagining. Like, it's about not even jumping off the cliff, but somebody pushing you off if need be, so you can push yourself to a limit that you never would have experienced otherwise. And now you know it's what it really feels like, the exquisiteness of the pain. And so I don't know. That was all very interesting to me.
Yeah, just in terms of, like, speaking on Julia and her evilness, as it were. Because in the first movie, one of my favorite moments is sort of that montage of her, bringing the men to the house. It's just like rinse and repeat. And then there's the shot of her sitting on the sofa, and she's got the brandy, and she looks really disturbed, like, like, what am I doing? And then a smile, like, slowly starts to, like, turn up on her mouth, and it's just like, oh, she's into this, like, she's enjoying this. So it's like the seeds were planted, like, she's always had this in her. It's just like this was able to bring her out. My issue, which again, I don't really have issues with this movie, like, the issue is that there's no story and there's a lot of I feel like padding and just, like, running around and that. But, like, I guess the thing that doesn't really make any sense is the hierarchy of, like, evil here, because we start off and I mean, as far as we know, the Cenobites are, like, the be all end all. Like, they are, like, the worst of the worst. Like, these are the ones you want to look out for, and like, they're kind of shown to be a little, like, not all that in this movie. Like, they don't really have much effect on anything, and they are taken out so easily by Chenard, who's, like, relatively green. Like, he just became this thing, and he comes in and he's just like, without even exerting any effort. It wasn't like this, like, big Freddy versus Jason style battle commenced. He just sort of, like, with the flick of a wrist, he's, like, basically Harry Potter. Like, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. By the way, were you shocked the first time you saw it and saw that Chatterer was actually, like, a small child?
A child, yes. And I had forgotten that, so when I saw it again this time, I went, oh my god, I forgot about that! And it still shocks me.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So it's like, they're kind of set up, at least with the end of the last movie, that, like, they're the big bads here, and they're taken out super easily by Julia. Or sorry, not Julia, Chenard. But then we have this whole thing where you're talking about how he's sort of half consenting, half not. Like, she's leading him down into Leviathan, and when she finally does it, it's almost like she betrays him. Like, that's sort of like the energy that's given in that scene, because he's like, what is this? Like, this is not what I wanted. So it kind of makes her now seem like she's more of a big bad than he is. And then we also have Frank, who's kind of, like, pulling the strings from the side here, and he was sort of like the big bad of the first movie, just in terms of, like, he kills Julia, he's got this dominion over her, and now here it's like the tables are turned, so she takes him out very easily and very, like, very coldly, and then she just walks down this, like, labyrinth, and she's taken out by a gust of wind, essentially. And it's like, so I feel like in terms of, like, what takes out each, like, demon or whatever, it doesn't feel proportionate. That's the thing I'm gonna keep going back to. Like, nothing in this movie feels proportionate of just, like, what happens, because it's like she's presented as being, like, the strongest of everything, and she's relatively new to this herself. She's been dead for an afternoon, and she and reskinned as well, and she kind of comes into it, and it's like she has all this, like, this deep well of knowledge about what Leviathan is and all that, and it's like, is it just one of those things that, like, as soon as she crossed over, that it was just like, it's like the Matrix, it's like you suddenly learn all this shit, or did she study it, or was it like something that like Frank told her about in the first movie that we just didn't see it? Because she's talking about this like she's a seasoned expert, and it's like, bitch, you've been dead for a day. Come on.
I think it's that thing of like, you know, the rate that we learn at and everything. Again, this is all headcanon from me and just things that I have in my own life that I just kind of plug into a movie like this. Where I'm just kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. Because I don't even know where it is written, but I've heard people talk about like the afterlife and things like that, and about once you shuffle off this mortal coil, you move into some kind of like place of knowing all. Like there are no more questions, there are only answers, and there's no need for the answers because there's no want for anything. Want is kind of like an earthly thing, you know, as opposed to like it's a mortal thing, whereas once you shuffle it off, if there is consciousness, it's a consciousness that is no longer mortal. Anyway, so that's all headcanon shit where I'm just kind of like, yeah, sure, that makes sense why she would kind of know everything. But I did want to ask you like something quite simple that I don't think the movie ever answered outright, and I just want to know when Channard transforms, I didn't use the word because I don't know if it's true. Does he technically become a Cenobite? Is that what he is? Or are the Cenobites only that particular troop that we have followed from movie 1 into movie 2? What do you think?
I mean, I think that there's just like all like it's the Cenobite is this like all-encompassing like any sort of like demonic thing. Because I know I don't know if it's mentioned in the movie, but I've just read it on like, you know, when I've like studied up on Hellraiser, because I did like a Hellraiser timeline video on my channel once. That the four of them, like the foursome of Pinhead, female Cenobite, which is just all she's ever called.
Oh, God.
Butterball and Chatterer are called the Order of the Gash. So.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think they're just like their own sort of like faction within the Cenobites. The Order of the Gash.
That is hilarious.
But I think it's funny that it's interesting how you always kind of like delve deeper into your headcanon and stuff. And I'm more so thinking about things like, you know, speaking of the female Cenobite, like she speaks and it's like clearly like it sounds like it's just like a male voice like dubbed over. And all I can think of is like the mom from Bob's Burgers.
So she just shows up and goes, "Hey there, Kirsty. We want to make you one of us. The Order of the Gash." Wow.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But I do, in terms of like what took them out and everything like that. Like, yeah, it is kind of tissue paper. Then it's like, wow, why isn't this entire wing of hell taken out like on a daily basis if it's that easy to, you know, kind of like undo them? But at the same time, I feel like that I don't know, there will always, again, the headcanon thing, I think about humanity, and there will always be desire, there will always be appetites that are restrained and therefore that intensify and long for things. There will always be curiosity. We really talked about that for the first movie, about curiosity needing to be satisfied and then that being punished. But punished or rewarded if you see yourself as like pushing someone to the limits of their pain that they feel pleasure. I don't know, but I did think in terms of like so Channard becomes a Cenobite for all intents and purposes. What was interesting to me was the key difference I found between them, and I think why it was so easy for him to kind of strip them of their lives, basically their afterlives. I just feel like the Order of the Gash we associated with until now, or the only Cenobites we've associated with until now. And they were all about unlocking something that was already inside you, kind of like what you mentioned with Julia, it was always inside her. I feel like they always see that in people. Otherwise, those people wouldn't have summoned them. Right. You know, like their desire wouldn't have drawn them to them. As opposed to Channard, which just feels like a selfish asshole and doesn't even seem concerned with the other person's desires at all. He's much more about manipulating people in a way to do things that will get him off, which is ironic because as a human being, even as his plan, or I don't know if you can call it his plan, but just like his nefarious deeds are unfolding, like with the mattress and the sacrifices and the this and the that, he never once looks happy about it. Yeah. He always looks like the most miserable fuck you've ever seen. He doesn't crack a smile. He does the time that he
no,
seems
it's not
to
the
be
same
like,
way as like Julia in the first movie where it's sort of no.
Yeah, there's no joy to the man whatsoever.
No, I don't think that he's a great character, but he's just sort of like the big bad, the evil for the sake of being evil. But it's interesting that you mentioned this and sort of, I guess, like the canon of like, you know, like a Cenobites or, you know, whatever you would call Frank, like what their sort of experience is in this. Because, I mean, we see in the first movie, like Frank is obviously drawn to this through desire. And the way that scene plays out is very similar to the way that scene is played out at the beginning of this movie with, and I totally forget the character's real name, like his human name, but like Pinhead as this like army pilot, because he does the same thing. He's like, you know, the ceremony and opens the box and it shoots out, but then we see like what happens to him and he gets the pins in his head and all that. And I mean, as far as we know with Frank, he was just sort of like skinned. So that was like his thing. So I mean, I guess maybe you can consider just like skinless Frank to be a version of a Cenobite, but the thing is maybe it's because Pinhead and the rest of the Order of the Gash, because they've spent so much time being Cenobites, because they even forget, like that's the whole, you know, the purpose of that scene of Kirsty reminding them, it's just like we were all human once, whereas Frank and Chenard and Julia are like, this is new for them. They're almost like they're in this honeymoon stage, but there's been more time behind them as humans that they still have kind of like those human memories and feelings. And it kind of makes you think as well, as just like how does one become a Cenobite? Because as we see when Tiffany opens the box, the three of them, not Pinhead, are like ready to claim her, and Pinhead comes out last, and he's just like, no, these are not hands that summon us, but desire. Yes. So you have to think like, when we find out that, and especially now that I'm thinking about this, that Tiffany seems to be the one that has a reaction to seeing Chatterer spinning around on that thing and being revealed as a child, that maybe Chatterer is a case of just a child who like came across this box and unknowingly just played with it, and it like sucked him in, and that was the case. So it wasn't actually desire that took him and made him a Cenobite. So, you know, like that Pinhead himself had the wherewithal to know, like, no, leave her alone. She didn't do anything here. We're going after those people.
You just made me sad, though, because you made me realize that the Chatterer teeth chatter for two reasons. One, because you're cold, and that's Julia's game. But also because you're scared, and it makes me wonder, is like, did he turn into the Chatterer because like his teeth never stopped chattering? Oh my god, now I'm sad. But
Chatterer is my favorite. Chatterer is my favorite Cenobite. Mostly in the first movie, because you don't really get a whole lot of them here. But like that scene when because he's the first one that appears in the hospital with Kirsty. And what's sad is like the four of them are so iconic. Like that team of Cenobites, and we never see them. I think like maybe I know in the new movie they sort of like reimagined everyone, and like Pinhead's a female, and I'm pretty sure there was a Chatterer, but there's always like every movie like has its own like new Cenobites, but we never see like this foursome again. And I always remembered like that VHS cover of Hellbound where it's like the four of them, and it almost looks like an album of just sort of like a musical group. And they're just
Order of the Gash. Gonna play
Order
you our lament configuration. I'd love that. I would buy that album. Yeah, that'd be a great album.
Yeah, they're just standing there like they're in a band. Yeah.
It also did break my heart though, like because it had been enough time since I'd seen this movie that I kind of forgot like how everybody got taken out. So when the other three, like we've still got Pinhead standing there, but when the other three all kind of like turn human and get taken out, there's that moment, exchange of glances between Kirsty and Pinhead now, Doug Bradley, sans makeup and playing, the gentleman that he is. And he just kind of turns to her and they shared a glance and it looked like he almost kind of nodded to her knowingly and smiled a bit, like very, very subtle smile.
Yeah, there's a moment there.
And it made me think like, oh, he's got something up his sleeve. Okay, go for it, Pinhead, and then nothing gets taken out, and I was like, "What is that
give
moment?"
Us nothing. Yeah,
I know. Now I'm wondering in retrospect, like, was that moment meant to do what it did to me, to make me think like, okay, now take this, Chenard, and then no, that's not going to happen, or was he communicating something else to her, like thank you, or
I think that like. I mean, Kirsty is one of my favorite final girls. Like, my top three are Sydney Prescott, Nancy Thompson, and Ginny Field of Friday the 13th Part 2. And I actually think that, like, Kirsty and Ginny have a lot in common because, like, Ginny at the end of Friday 2, does the whole thing with, like, where she just, like, kind of has that empathy for, like, the Jason situation that she can sort of, like, get into his mind of just like the psychology here. And Kirsty's sort of like, I think she does it in a more, I mean, both of them do it like manipulatively, but like Kirsty does it in a way where it's just like she's more so bartering with them. But here it's just like she sees a photo, like she when she goes into the study and she's like, oh, that's him. That's Pinhead, that she's able to bring it out and see it. So that's basically the equivalent of like putting on the sweater and being like, Jason, mommy is proud. It's like, Pinhead, like this, you were a human once. So I think that like they have an interesting connection, Pinhead and Kirsty, which I think is great because it's just like, especially over just the course of these two movies, where they can have a moment like that where it's just sort of looking at her and she's looking back. But I always saw that as more of just like, thank you for, like letting me, get a part of my humanity back. And it was like almost like he might have, because he was ready. We saw him sort of like he had a weapon of something in his hand and he was about to use it, but then it was too late. And I don't really, I know I don't want to like spoil 3, but I'll just say that there is like sort of like this duality to Pinhead in that movie, because like from Hellraiser 3 onwards, Pinhead basically like they try to make him like a Freddy Krueger, like they that's where they really were just like, all right, we got to compete with like Michael and Jason and Freddy and Chucky, and so he really turned into more of just like that monster, and he would show up and it was just like the movies kind of changed at that point. Like he was just this all-encompassing evil, and there wasn't really any humanity there. Like there is something in 3, but I think from that point on it's like he's just like doing his crazy shit and and just like being destructive and like murdering people like he's a slasher villain, which he's not, and he never was originally. But that's just like, that was the misconception of it, I guess, like the producers or the studio of just like, this is what people want, this is what's hot right now. So it just sort of, it veered off into its own thing. But I think that in its initial concept, at least like with this movie, is that the plan was to kind of like show us that like there was this humanity that still existed in him, and Kirsty was able to bring that out. And this is before Chenard even came out and like undid their his pins and his face shit. And
it's so epic in its world building, particularly in this one. Like I think the first one just raised a lot of questions for me, and in a good way. It just made me like curious about like, well, who are they and what are they, they keep proselytizing about like pain and pleasure and all of that, but like and it goes on in this one to the point where it almost feels like it's a religion, that happens that's accessed through the lament configuration. So if that's the religion, now it felt like Leviathan, or at least what was representational of Leviathan in that giant kind of diamond in the sky, that dagger-like diamond in the sky.
The lozenge.
The lozenge, the sharp lozenge, the spiky lozenge is God. So Julia fancied herself first the wicked stepmother, and then evolved now into, the evil queen. And it was so nice, actually. Little tangent. I saw an interview where they were promoting this stuff, and the excitement in glee in Claire Higgins as she was discussing what attracted her to come back. She's like, "Oh, please, to come back and play the Queen of Hell? Who wouldn't?" And I'm like, "Oh, I love you so much. You're so delicious." But and I think she definitely sees herself that way. But I felt like it was a self-appointed position and not so much, like now I'm the queen. I felt like there was poise, the same kind of or similar poise to like that of, Pinhead and the Order of the Gash. And but I always felt like in this movie, like I kept feeling, coming back to words like prophets or apostles, like they're all practicing the religion and trying to I guess convert people and get them to recognize this thing inside of themselves so they can spread the religion, because it is what they all believe, no matter how much or little of themselves they're still retaining, like, from like their lives as humans. I think it comes to an answer now for me a little bit. Maybe that's why Julia and Chenard were so easily taken out, is because they haven't been practicing that long. They're kind of like the nouveau riche of the religion, they just they're just kind of like, "Oh yeah, I get it, pleasure, pain, awesome, okay, let me go out there and I'll just do it." And then like a gust of wind goes by and it just takes them out, or in what I loved about Chenard's part is that I think what took him out, what I perceived, was that Leviathan itself deemed him unworthy. Just kind of like, no, because I thought that's what was attached to his head, was almost like the kind of like insect hand and the penis arm attached to his head with a little drill bit, going into his skull to try and infuse him with the spirit or whatever. And it was just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to say no. You're not at all part of my mission statement. So you know what? I'm not even going to decapitate you. I'm going to pull the top part of your skull off and leave your fucking jaw. That was amazing. But but I think that it's odd because even in her own way, Kirsty, it makes me so mad because I see such possibilities for the stories from here on out, because I did see it seemed like Kirsty's suffering kind of outweighed a lot of of her stuff, her screen time, shall we say, in this movie. And it made me wonder, like, if at some point down the line, if Kirsty had gone on being a part of these movies, like, a thread through these films, as much as like the Cenobites and the Leviathan and everything that we're establishing, if it could have just carried on like chapters of the same book, I wonder if eventually Kirsty might have like realized how much pain she was suffering and might not completely go over to the other side, but might entertain the notion, like, what would it take to make her even consider, like, you know what, I'm suffering at like nobody's business, I may as well enjoy some pleasure.
Well,
I wonder.
So there's a series of comics or graphic novels,
Ooh.
rather. I'm not sure, that like more so, I believe, like that's the impression I was under, that sort of continue a storyline.
Oh my god.
And there is like a thing where she does become like, I guess a new version of the Pinhead or a Cenobite. I don't really. I've never really like researched too much into that because it's not part of the movies. But she does appear in 2 more movies after this. She's in the third one. She has a cameo. It's literally just like her. It's like a video of her, and I don't know if it was like filmed when they did the third movie or it was just like filmed with this one, and it was like same with like the wedding that they like then just took and put in this movie. But then she is full on in 6. Hellraiser, Hellseeker, and we're never gonna cover this movie because it's not a movie. It's a spec script of bullshit that then is like
yeah.
implemented this and she's barely in it. That like she's very integral to the story, but it's her, and she now has like her family's wealth or whatever, and she's married to I forgot the actor's name, but he was on the show Oz, and he is like planning to murder her or something, and to get the money or whatever. But then they get into a car accident. This is the beginning of the movie. She dies, and then the whole movie is like him going through this like endless like hell of just like everything is like, it's like a nightmare of just like what's real, what isn't, whatever. And then by the end it's like there's like this twist or whatever, and she comes back, but it's like it's Ashley Lawrence playing her, but it's like that's not Kirsty at all. And it's just like the essence of her and like everything about it, like this is Dimension probably just like giving her pennies to come and do this role, and just disrespecting the character so much. But yeah, there's like a whole twist to it, and it's one of the worst ones. And I was like, I was disappointed because I would think that like I was waiting for her to come back, and just like you know, where's the opportunity? I was pissed off that they didn't bring her back. Like the new movie should have been about her. So I don't know, like it seems like every time they try to do anything with Hellraiser, they're just like, it's just mistake after mistake, because I want to see the Order of the Gash. I want to see the 4 of those. I don't think that Doug Bradley is ever returning to the role at this point. But who knows? I don't even know if he's like, you know, he might be too old to do it. Like, you know, he might like Robert Englund retiring from Freddy Krueger. Whether that. Yeah.
He said if they ever make another Freddy movie with him in it, it'd have to be called Freddy, what was it? Freddy Takes Viagra or something like that. Mm-hmm. So, I wouldn't put it past Doug Bradley not to come back.
But I agree with you. Like this franchise probably could have been more viable had they taken I think that had they maybe realized like what was working for it, rather than going for what they thought was more commercially viable, which was like slasher icon Pinhead. Because it's that in and of itself just shows me that they weren't aware of what that character was, and to like kind of like push Kirsty aside as well, of just not being important enough to like bring her back and continue a story. So yeah, I mean, it's a cautionary tale. It's just like, you know, you can have a franchise and you can start off on a really strong foot, and one wrong move will, you know, based on like, you know, a studio or decision of like a bunch of people that don't really understand what horror is, to make something that they think is going to make more money, and then maybe it made some money at the time, but then in the long haul, here's Hellraiser, which is just completely like DOA in terms of franchises, of just like, you know, how profitable it's been. So I think, you know, it might be a lesson to other franchises of just like what not to do moving forward. But you did mention the epicness and like sort of like the world building, and one thing I don't even remember if we mentioned it in the first Hellraiser podcast, but I sure as hell want to, you know, mention it here, is Christopher Young. Because we've talked about him as a composer many a time before, and I think like I love the score to like how like this, because he does this one and he does the original. He doesn't come back after that, to my knowledge. But the movie, the way that it starts off, because I think it shows sort of like the previously on Hellraiser, and then it's just like New World Pictures, and then like boom, boom, like just the score coming in like so operatic, and it's like you feel it, like you're in this world. Like his music is so good, and it really sets the stage for this epic fairy tale. And I mean, I love that, like, there's the nuances that are added to this, because there's like a lot of the music is the same, but then there's like I couldn't even like, you know, I'm trying to like find the melody, but like when Kirsty first encounters Tiffany, and she sort of sees her, and she's like putting together those wooden puzzles, and there's sort of this like, you know, music that comes in, and it's almost like, I don't know what the track is called, but it's just like everything that it's doing, it just feels like it is evoking the spirit of like what you're seeing, and it's almost like this like knowledge and just like puzzles and stuff, and it just feels, it's just like you've never like a composer have I seen is just like able to like immerse the listener and the viewer into the story of what's happening as well as Christopher Young can do.
Yeah. I agree 100%. It's the kind of score that you just feel like it gives nothing but size and validity, like a verisimilitude to everything that's going on, which is another reason why I think I buy into it. I think it's also, it feels so still in a weird way. I mean, it just speaks to my age, but there's something so kind of wonderfully contemporary about it, which now looks classic to like people who were born after I was. But it's just, I mean, it's something as simple as the establishing shots, the master shots of like the Labyrinth. They all look hand drawn in a way that absolutely enchants me, because it reminds me, I wasn't big on landscape sketching when I was younger. I liked faces and profiles and bodies and stuff like that, but a lot of my friends did, and I remember like, you know, just like looking over someone's shoulder at school or something and just seeing this immense landscape that they built, you know, just like with a pencil and just paper and boredom, basically, you know, like I wish I were here instead, you know, and there's something about like about that makes me feel it's not nostalgia, because it doesn't just warm my heart. It actually like kind of like behaves like time travel and transports me back to kind of like, I think a younger mind frame, like something that kind of like I guess makes me a very, very forgiving audience member and goes like, I don't care if that doesn't make any sense. Look how cool this is.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's also the fact that it doesn't make any sense in terms of like we don't know where the first movie takes place. Like, is it in England? Is it in the States? Where's this one taking place? In the in 3, it very clearly does take place in the States, which just kind of goes to show the mentality of just like where they were moving towards like commercializing it. But I think that's what really worked well for the first 2 movies, is that there is this sort of this ambiguity to where this is all taking place, and I love that with in terms of like the Labyrinth, of just sort of, you know, there are scenes where just like the Cenobites are like outside of it, but it's still like everything bleeds together, so it's just, you don't know where you are, and it just creates this this disorientation of what's going on. And that was something that wasn't really present in the first movie, because I mean, it was very clear like when we didn't really go to hell very much it was just really when she went down that corridor, and then when Frank would like tell the story to Julia, like everything was pretty much taking place in that house or in the hospital or wherever. Whereas like here, like we're hellbound, we're going down there, and the art direction is really like superb in this. Like there's something to be said for it.
I even, again, like at one point, I think it's after Kirsty has found herself in the Labyrinth. She hasn't found Tiffany yet, and she's kind of like running. She stops and just leans against the wall, and you can see as because she doesn't carefully do it. She kind of pops against the wall, and you can see it kind of like shake, and it's clearly like I don't know if it's plastic or you know, some kind of layer.
I saw that when Frank pushed Kirsty into that pillar, and you could just see it sort of like go in a little bit. But it's like, again, it's just like but at that time, what I was thinking before is like, is this a built set, or is this like a church that they just like kind of took and then dressed to look that? Like, it still looks really good. Like just the you know keeping their actors safe and having foam pillars or whatever. Like it's I mean, I saw that in Scream 3. Wes Craven even talked about it when Sydney, or the stunt performer who's playing Sydney, falls out from like this set that's supposed to be her bedroom and falls onto like the lawn. They actually put like a pad underneath, so you can see when she lands, it's just like there's sort of this bounce, and he's like, yeah, you know, like it's there, you can kind of see it, but you know.
Yeah. There's another one I think that's gonna come up in a movie we're watching this month that I'm not gonna name yet. But yeah, one of those cases.
You'll probably have to remind me because I've already forgotten.
In this movie that we're going to be covering, there is clearly like a stunt that is performed that is protected by a layer of foam that is covered with leaves, or a blanket that's kind of woven with maybe fabric leaves on them or something. I don't know how much care was put into it, but you can see the bounce, is what I'm saying.
You'll have to tell me when we get to
you'll
it.
See it. Yeah. You'll see it.
Cool. I don't think I have much else to say. If there's anything else you wanted to address.
I guess I'm just gonna have to settle for all my hopes for Kirsty until I can get my hands on those comics where she becomes a Cenobite. I'll just have to settle for the fact that she donned Julia's skin at the end.
I mean, that, and again, that's another thing that's very Ginny. It's sort of like, it's the sweater.
Yes.
Yeah.
but
and every time that happens, because I forgot about that, like not on the most recent viewing, but like I think when I watched the movie for the first time in like many years, a few years back, I didn't remember that, so I actually thought it was Julia coming back.
It's almost as if Ginny like pulled the severed head over her own and then started to tell Paul, it's okay, trust me. With Betsy Palmer's, it's just decaying skull. But that was the thing that got me, was like, why didn't she just? I mean, I know why, because we needed a reveal for the movie's sake. But like, just her to go, trust me. If it had been me, I think I might have just let myself fall. But like, fuck you, bitch, and just should I trust her, or is something worse going to happen to me? And then instead it's like, oh, my trust got rewarded. See, that maybe that might be the biggest problem I have with the entire movie, because nothing gets rewarded in this franchise. There is no reward. Everyone walks away with trauma, or they don't walk away and they live on eternity underground with their trauma,
It's just funny to see like more and more of these like classic like 80s era horror movies where you look at a character and you think like, holy shit, they went through the ringer, and then you compare it to Laurie Strode 2018 and be like, okay, girl, come on.
They're gonna need like a vacay. They're gonna need like a beach house and just some remoteness and some quiet. Maybe a country house and make some sun tea like Sydney in the end of Scream 3.
I want to see a multiverse movie of just like Andy Barclay, Kirsty, just like all these people just like confronting like 2018 Laurie and just be like, bitch, like. You gotta get out. You gotta get a little.
They're all sitting in a circle. They're all sitting in a circle, sharing their trauma. And by the time it gets to Laurie, they're all weeping and weeping after hearing from
and then
poor
Laurie's
Sally
just like, she's
Hardesty.
just like, you don't believe in the boogeyman, like however she says it in the. Well, you should.
And I'm like,
I'll take my payment now.
But no, ultimately, like the biggest jolt in a positive way that I got from this particular screening was it reminded me of when I was a child, and I used to watch like the old Universal classic horror movies, and it would take a while before we'd get to the monster, the creature. Yeah. And I remember I kind of learned at a very young age, you always have to kind of suffer through the boring part in order to get to the creature, because that's the interesting part. And then a movie like this comes along, and I realize there is no real boring part for me. I'm so invested in these characters that, like, as I'm riding the wave on the way to the creature, as it were, I'm still enjoying myself. So that was something I was really grateful for.
I think like for me, like it's still going strong. Like I love all the stuff of just sort of the like Julia, being resurrected and like then getting her skin back and all that, like right down to Tiffany coming in and opening up the labyrinth. And I like them going in, but I think that once Julia is like ripped out of her skin and like sent flying, like it just kind of nothing happens from that point on. It's just sort of like we're running in and out of the labyrinth. Channard is like easily takes out the Cenobites, and it's just like it's the rest of the movie's like let's wrap it up quicker, and it's loud. It gets really loud and like shrill, but that's my take. I mean, I still enjoy a lot of this, but let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed him. On purpose.
Right, cherry on top. I mean, it's Kirsty. Is that what you were gonna say? Are we
I mean, I always want to give it to Julia, but we gave it to Julia last time. I'm cool with giving it to Kirsty this time.
Yeah. Well, she
deserves it. She suffered so.
Julia, like in the first movie, they were like kind of 50-50. Like Julia really was more so present in the first half, and then Kirsty, who was kind of like, waiting in the wings, became more prominent in the second half. I feel like Kirsty, this is her movie. Julia is just sort of like, she makes a special guest appearance. She's the Heather Locklear of the film. But Kirsty, and especially just for all like everything I said is just like that petulant like child nature, and just like the way that she delivers it, but still like comes off in an endearing way, and just like her lines. This was the first movie, and I think I mentioned it, but when like she first encounters Frank in the attic, and she grabs the box, and he's like, "The box, give it to me," or whatever, and she's just like looks at it, and she looks at him, no. Yeah. And she says it exactly like that too, before she throws it out the window. So yeah.
Also, another exchange with her and Frank in this particular one, where she seemed to kind of like, be on the cusp of using her womanly wiles to try and divert his attention and, like make him drop his guard. And he was standing there kind of stunned, like, really? And then all of a sudden she said something like, dumbass. And then she threw the sheet away. And then he started to burn. What I loved about it was she made him pay without really ever intending to. Like, she didn't want anything bad to happen to her, for sure. Yeah. She wanted to defend herself, but she didn't know, if I throw this sheet onto those flames, he'll go up too. And so she just kind of like watched him burn, just kind of like, really?
She got lucky.
All right. Yeah. So I like that. I like the fact that she can make her enemies suffer without even trying. That's just by her decency. I like that.
I mean, I don't know if like just doing something and not knowing that was the result and getting lucky is like a quality to a final girl.
Dream-like quality, Zach.
All right. So last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Exorcist II, and I don't even have the information written down. I have the numbers, but I didn't write the information down. So I nominated Dr. Jean Tuscan. You nominated Father Philip Lamont. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final vote was 134 for Dr. Tuscan and 190 for Father Philip Lamont.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Silent Saturn. Father Lamont didn't want to be there. He said he was unsuited for the assignment and struggling with his faith, yet he was sent anyway. Jean, on the other hand, forces herself onto the plot every chance she gets. So it's the axe for her. Though honestly, it should be Eddie for making us watch this nonsense. Why does he hate us so? Have we not always been good to him? Exorcist II now joins Leprechaun, Halloween Resurrection, and JC Vampires at the bottom of the cherry picker covered movies.
Wow.
My Chunky Jordy, everyone for starring in this abomination.
That's not how it works.
Blue Box 87. This was Louise Fletcher's first role after winning an Oscar. That's punishment enough. Father Lamont gets my vote. More like Father Lament. Am I right? Huh? Wah, wah. Donnybrook, whoever choreographed Reagan's tap dance routine. Talk about evil.
But they're not on screen, so it doesn't count.
What if it was like it's when she was first doing it, because like her getup, I was kind of getting, I guess, flash forwards of Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Oh my God! I was just getting automaton. Like her eyes were just. They were so alive that they were dead. You know what I mean?
Dylan Jameson, having the male spelling of Jean is punishment enough, so Father Lamont dies for breaking the fourth wall. Welshman, Father Philip, because he looks just like the pastor who touched me as a choir boy.
Ooh!
We're just unloading trauma.
Everything,
Just
yeah.
Trauma. This is a trauma pod.
Trauma-laden podcast,
Yeah.
yes.
Sean Prinsick. I still can't believe that this movie chose to give more credit to Father Lancaster. Is that how you say his name? Lancaster?
Lancaster,
Lancaster. Lancaster Marin. You know, the guy who died before he could save Reagan. Meanwhile, Father Damien Karras is pretty much forgotten, even though he is the one that got Pazuzu out of Reagan. It's even worse when you consider that Damien would continue struggling with Pazuzu until Exorcist Legion. So disrespectful. Aside from that, I don't remember much about this movie. Linda Blair was great as always. The actor playing Philip Lamont was terrible. I don't remember Dr. Jean. That's why I picked Philip.
Okay. I love the reasoning.
Yeah, you basically won by default. Congratulations.
Well, but I love that a lot of people are going like, well, Dr. Jean has suffered enough because insert reason here. So, yeah, I kind of like that.
So.
Okay, wow. I didn't really... for some reason, I thought you were going to win, so I just kind of thought like, okay,
I didn't prepare a speech, you know, like...
It's so
unexpected, yeah.
Unexpected, that's the word. I'm so unforetold. Oh my goodness. Well, first, there's so many people to thank. No. From this movie, who deserves to die the most? That's hard.
Do you remember who you picked for the first one?
For the first one,
because we didn't even talk about that, but that character.
No, Oliver Parker. Oliver Parker, the actor who played Moving Man 2 in the first movie, is back playing Workman 2 in this one. I don't think he deserves to die in this one, even though he does, doesn't he? Yeah. So he finally got it, so he doesn't really deserve it anymore.
Like 2 days later, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So he got it. But I mean, the ones who it's really tough between two. I think I have to, just because of the damage he did to the Order of the Gash, I have to go with Dr. Chenard. Just kind of, you know me, I always go to this. He's everything that's wrong with the world. He's this immobilized, just kind of flaccid, expressionless man who just kind of wants things, and then he does things, and then he gets things, and then now that he's got things, now I'm powerful, so now I'm gonna fuck everyone up. And I don't like it. I feel like when the Leviathan gives you the thumbs down and tells you you're dismissed, you know, like, no, there you go, your head's gone. He absolutely deserved that, and he deserved worse, actually. But because I think the Leviathan let him go on for way too long. Like the Order of the Gash, they did not deserve that. So, yeah, I choose him. I choose him. How about you?
I'm gonna go with Frank Cotton, because I mean, like, where'd he get his skin? Where did all of a sudden he's got his skin back, and I don't know where it is. And plus, he was taken out so easily, like a bitch, by Julia after all the, like, he thought he was smoother than that, so
yeah.
I don't know. And what's he doing? And he's like gaslighting Kirsty to like come down there because he needs her to be his like sex bride. Like, that is your niece, dude. Like,
yeah, that's
it's
gross.
just it's kind of icky. So, and there's really no one else. I mean, like,
no.
I don't know, maybe like the detective at the beginning, or he is introduced like he's an important character. He just disappears. But
yeah, he even says his name, Kusich, I think, Officer Kusich, and I'm just gonna like, oh, I'll write that down. He seems like he's gonna be a prominent character. Didn't remember him, and then I realized why, because he's not in the rest of the movie.
He literally disappears after that scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with old Frankie.
Justice for Julia. She got him back. She said, nothing personal, babe.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Love her. And she had a full manicure, too. Did you notice when her flesh came back? Fully painted and manicured nails. Hell's
Dream
manicure.
Logic. Dream Logic.
Yeah, Dream Logic. Yeah. Love it. Go on.
Anyway, vote your heart, vote your conscience. You can vote on Patreon if you go over there. It's an extra vote. I open that to the public, but you can also support us there and, get the early episodes. You can find us on Instagram and vote there. So at the Cherry Picker Pod, and also on YouTube. So if you are new to the Cherry Picker and you are watching us for the first time or listening to us, head over to YouTube and subscribe there. You can vote in the community section. And if you are watching us, head over to the RSS feed link that's in the description down below, and you can listen to us wherever you go. If you're on the go, if you're on the bike, if you're on the treadmill, where do people usually like podcast? Maybe they're climbing. Maybe they're grocery shopping. If you're grocery shopping right now, and you're listening to this, because you never know. Like we see you.
Maybe they're
that's kind of creepy. Yeah.
Maybe they're configuring. Maybe they're summoning deities.
Maybe they're walking through the labyrinth. You never know. But yeah, we appreciate you. Those are the places you can go and follow us and find us and vote. Edward, where can they find you personally?
That is the question. Instagram, YouTube, Letterboxd is where I am most. So at Edward is Truth, one word, traditional spelling, like it sounds. How about you, Zach Cherry?
The enthusiasm was dripping off of you with that one.
You be really enthusiastic now.
Hey folks, you can find me over on my main YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, ZACK'Cherry. I'm also on Twitter /X at ZachCherry8, Letterboxd, Zach Cherry, same spelling, or Instagram, get this, Retro Bitch Face, all one word.
You were killing me.
What are the other platforms?
Aren't you on X?
What else the kids are?
Formerly known as Twitter.
Tumblr?
Tumblr? Is that even a thing anymore?
Vine?
No, Vine has been discontinued.
It's gone.
It's all about the TikTok.
You can find me over on Grindr. Tinder, Plenty of Fish.
Plenty of Fish. OkCupid. Match.com.
The
Bumble. That's one. Oh my
Bumble.
God. Craigslist.
Yeah, there's Craigslist. Yeah.
Casual encounters.
I'm just gonna leave my window open. You know, my address.
Drop on by.
Yeah, drop on by. Anyway, that's all we got for you this week. Edward, what are we talking about? There's something important just coming up next.
It's the one that's the end, but it's not. It's the last one, but it's not.
But it's a special holiday.
Yeah,
not really.
And it's
not a calendar holiday.
Yeah, and it's the fourth one, but it's not because it's really days later. So it's
it's not Thursday the 12th.
It's Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Part 4, if you want to put that in there.
Yeah.
But it's also I'll do the math again. I always forget, but I believe it's Monday the 16th and Tuesday the 17th. But I'll double check. I'll have an answer for you next week.
Oh, you mean in the movie
within
proper.
The framework, because
not when the
it's cresting
released.
over the Friday. No. It's cresting over the Friday the 13th of the aforementioned Amy Steele. Cresting. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.